I made $45,000 in 1 week selling my jars of farts.
They say the love of money is the root of all evil, and those words couldn't be truer today. People will do just about anything for cash, driven by greed, desperation, or pure materialism. From bizarre scams to reckless crimes, some take things to shocking extremes, only for their schemes to backfire in the worst ways imaginable. But what insane things have people done exactly for money? Join us as we count down 17 times when doing anything for money went terribly wrong. Number 17. Carjacking attempt on Derrick Lewis. Back in May of 2021, UFC fighter Derrick Lewis shared a crazy story on Instagram. He said that some random guy had tried to steal his car. This all went down in Houston, Texas, where Lewis lives. At the time, Lewis was 36 years old and well known in the UFC's heavyweight division. People called him the Black Beast, and he had more knockouts than anyone else in that weight class. The news got around quickly, and a lot of media outlets said that Lewis was definitely not the kind of person you would want to mess with, especially not if you were trying to steal his ride. On May the 18th, after wrapping up a training session, Lewis was heading back to his car when he heard a weird sound. That was when he saw a man using a screwdriver, clearly trying to break in through the driver's side door. Lewis did not waste any time. He punched the guy and held him down until the police got there. Later on, he posted a picture on social media showing the man getting loaded into a police car. He also shared a video showing what the thief had done to his vehicle. Just to top it off, Lewis posted another photo on his Instagram story showing his knuckles all bruised up. He wrote, "Satisfaction, he is okay," as the caption. It turns out the punch had landed so hard that the man had to be taken to the hospital before they could even charge him with damaging property. Number 16. Steph Matto. A woman from Connecticut, who used to be on a reality TV show, had to stop a strange but money-making business after thinking she was having a heart attack. Her name is Steph Matto, and most people know her from the show 90 Day Fiancé. In 2021, she started making videos on TikTok about selling something very unusual, which were jars of her own farts. Her videos got millions of views. It all began in November of that year, when people started asking her for this strange product on a grown-up content website called Unfiltered. At 31 years old, Steph was shocked by how many people actually wanted to buy what she called win jars. She even gave herself the nickname Fartpreneur. At her busiest, she was sending out as many as 50 jars every week. She later told a news outlet that she made about $200,000 from the business before she had to stop because of her health. Toward the end of 2021, she was rushed to the emergency room with sharp chest pain and trouble breathing. She told Jam Press she honestly thought she was having a stroke and that she might die. But once doctors ran an EKG, they found out it was not anything serious. It was just a buildup of gas, caused by all the fiber she was eating to stay gassy for her business. For months, she had mostly been eating beans, eggs, and protein shakes to keep up with the demand. Steph also talked about how people reacted to her business. Some folks liked what she was doing and called her a girl boss, while others were mean and even sent her death threats. Number 15. Trading a kidney for a phone. Back in 2011, a teenager from China made a shocking decision. He sold one of his kidneys just to buy a new iPhone and iPad. The young man, known only by his last name, Wang, wanted to keep up with his classmates, but those Apple gadgets were incredibly expensive. At the time, they were some of the most wanted electronics in China, and their prices were so high that even office workers in big cities would have to spend a whole month's salary to afford them. Since his parents could not buy them for him, Wang turned to the internet and found some shady people on a messaging board who were willing to help him sell a kidney. The surgery took place in a small, unlicensed clinic in the city of Chenzhou. After the procedure, Wang walked away with 22,000 yuan, which was about $3,500. But later, it was revealed that this was only a small portion of the total amount, and he got just 10%, while the middlemen pocketed most of the cash. His mother only found out what he had done when she noticed him showing off his brand new iPhone 4 and iPad 2. Horrified, she reported everything to the authorities. After a full investigation, public prosecutors charged 9 people, including 3 doctors. Each of them ended up with jail sentences ranging from 3 to 5 years. In November 29, 2012, a court ruled that Wong's family should be paid around $230,000 as compensation. Sadly, Wong's health started going downhill not long after the surgery. 7 years later, reports about his condition painted a heartbreaking picture. His life had become incredibly hard. He could no longer go to school, he had to rely on social benefits, and worst of all, he spent most of his time stuck in bed. Because of kidney failure, he needed regular dialysis, and his family had to take care of him every single day. Number 14. Roberto Fuentes Bernal. In 2016, a man in Venezuela became the victim of a violent street attack after people accused him of stealing from someone in the capital city, Caracas. At the time, the country was going through a rough period, struggling with extreme inflation, poverty, and a crime rate so bad that some news reports compared it to a war zone. One day in April, a man in his 70s had just left a bank when he suddenly shouted that 42-year-old Roberto Fuentes Bernal had taken his money. Bernal tried to run, but a group of motorcycle riders quickly caught up to him, knocked him to the ground, and started beating him badly. They dug through his pockets and handed the elderly man a small bundle of cash, which was said to be worth around $5. As Bernal lay bleeding on the pavement from a deep cut on the back of his head, one of the attackers took gasoline from a motorcycle and poured it on him. Then, in front of a crowd of bystanders, they set him on fire. A witness later described hearing his skin crackling as the flames spread, filling the air with the awful smell of burning flesh. Instead of helping, the crowd just stood there filming the horrifying scene on their phones. Bernal desperately tried to put out the fire, struggling to get up, but no one stepped in to save him. He likely would have died right there on the street if not for Alejandro Delgado, a youth pastor who also worked as a motorcycle taxi driver. Ignoring the angry shouts from his fellow riders, he rushed in and put the fire out. Bernal was taken to the hospital, but his injuries were severe, his eyes were burned shut, and the damage to his throat made it hard for him to speak. 2 days later, he died from his burns. A video of the brutal attack soon spread online, shocking many. Later reports said that prosecutors charged a 23-year-old former law student named Michael Jaimez with pouring the gasoline. However, the case against him was weak because his face could not be clearly seen in the video, and witnesses refused to testify against him. Number 13. Marcos Salas and Laura Holiday. A break-in at a home in the Mission Bay area of Boca Raton, Florida, in March of 2019 led to the arrest of 2 people, 34-year-old Marcos Salas and 33-year-old Laura Holiday. What made their crime unusual wasn't just the burglary itself, but the way they got to the house. They took a taxi. On the morning of March 11th, just before noon, the pair arrived at the home in a cab. Security cameras caught Holiday checking the mailbox before both of them walked around to the back of the house. Once there, they smashed a window on the back door to get inside, then stole jewelry and other valuables. Investigators from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office used the security footage and information from the taxi driver to track them down. Salas was arrested first and admitted to the crime. He was charged with burglary, grand theft, and property damage, with his bail set at $56,000. A few days later, police in Margate helped locate Holiday, who was also taken into custody, and confessed. Both suspects remained behind bars, and the stolen items were recovered and returned to the owner. This case was a reminder of how important security cameras and community awareness can be in helping police catch criminals quickly. Thanks to teamwork between residents and law enforcement, the burglars were caught and the neighborhood remained safe. Number 12. James Sorby. In 2011, a young man from England, James Sorby, ended up in the hospital with terrible burns after trying to steal copper wires. The incident happened at an electricity substation inside an old, unused post office sorting room in Leeds, West Yorkshire. At the time, the rising value of copper and other metals had led to a sharp increase in metal thefts across the country. But for 22-year-old James Sorby, what started as a risky theft nearly cost him his life. He had managed to get inside the abandoned building, but before he could even touch the wires, a powerful electrical charge jumped through the air and struck him. In an instant, a shocking surge of 22,000 volts shot through his body. The father of one suffered severe burns on his hands and face. His heart was weakened, he lost part of his vision in his left eye, and one of his hands became less mobile. Though he survived, he spent weeks in the hospital, going through multiple surgeries and skin grafts. The electricity had been so intense that it left a deep wound on his skull, exposing part of his brain. He needed a graft and even a hair transplant to cover it. Sorby later shared his story as a warning to others who might think about stealing metal. He said the hardest part of his recovery wasn't just the pain, it was the moment his young daughter couldn't recognize him because of his burned face. Number 11. Failed McDonald's robbery. In the month of June 2016, two unlucky robbers decided to hit a McDonald's in the eastern French city of Besançon. But their plan fell apart almost immediately. As soon as they entered, they started yelling at the customers to get down and fired a shotgun blast into the ceiling to show they meant business. What they didn't realize was that among the 40 or so people inside, 11 were plainclothes officers from the National Gendarmerie Intervention Group, a highly trained unit that specializes in hostage situations. The Special Forces officers, keeping their weapons hidden, didn't jump into action right away. Their main goal was to avoid making the situation worse and to keep the other customers safe. Instead, they waited for the right moment to act. One of the robbers grabbed about $2,300 from the cash register, and the pair tried to escape. That's when everything unraveled. As they ran, one of the robbers tripped on some stairs, giving the officers a chance to catch and pin him down. Meanwhile, the other thief kept running. The officers fired warning shots and ordered him to stop, but instead of surrendering, he aimed his shotgun at them. That was when one officer took a decisive shot, hitting the man in the abdomen. Both robbers, who were said to be in their mid-20s, were already known to the local police. They were taken to the hospital for treatment and later faced charges for armed robbery. In the late hours of a weekend in August 2020, Nitin Vora, a man from Vadodara, India, attempted to rob the Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. With an electric cutter in hand, he carefully made his way inside, determined to break into the strong room where the bank's valuables were kept. The surveillance cameras caught every moment of his methodical approach as he moved through the narrow path leading to the room, unaware that things were about to go terribly wrong. As Vora worked to slice through the tough metal plate of the strong room, the wire on the cutter shifted, causing the machine to stop. In a rush to finish before security arrived, he bent down to fix the problem. However, as he positioned the cutter again, the still spinning blade hit his neck with brutal force. The cutter sliced through his skin, and within moments, he collapsed to the floor in a pool of blood, his life quickly slipping away. Meanwhile, far away in Chennai, the bank's surveillance team noticed strange activity on the CCTV feed. They immediately alerted the branch manager, Prashant Sharma. By around 1 a.m., Sharma arrived at the bank and entered the strong room, where he was met with the shocking sight of Vora's lifeless body. Vora's body was later returned to his family after an autopsy, marking the tragic end of a heist that claimed the criminal's life instead of the bank's riches. In the early hours of the 10th of March, 2023, a man from Vacaville, California, tragically lost his life while attempting to steal a catalytic converter in Oakland. The police received reports about a crime in progress and arrived to find the man trapped under a car. The 35-year-old was declared dead at the scene. Authorities later confirmed that he had been trying to steal the catalytic converter from a Toyota Prius when things went terribly wrong. They believe the jack he was using to lift the car failed, causing the vehicle to fall on top of him. Nearby, A backpack filled with cutting tools was discovered, suggesting he was in the process of the theft when the accident occurred. Catalytic converter thefts have skyrocketed recently because of the valuable metals inside them. Just a month earlier, in Palmdale, California, a woman accidentally ran over and unalived a man who had been trying to steal a catalytic converter from underneath her SUV. She had fallen asleep in her Ford Excursion while parked in a retail lot. Woken up by the sound of sawing underneath her vehicle, the National Insurance Crime Bureau reports that catalytic converter thefts have increased by over 1,200% in recent years. Number 8. Phoenix home intruder shot by resident. On the night of Friday, the 24th of January, 2025, a deadly shooting took place in West Phoenix when a homeowner confronted someone he believed was breaking into his house. The incident happened near 107th Avenue and Indian School Road. When the authorities arrived, they found a 51-year-old man with a gunshot wound. He was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately, he did not survive. The homeowner was briefly held by the police and admitted to firing the shots, saying the man had broken into his home. Locals were left shaken, and one neighbor, who chose to remain anonymous, shared his surprise, saying, "It's not something you usually hear about around here. I've never heard of anything like this. It's definitely unsettling." The case is still under investigation, and legal authorities will determine if the homeowner acted in self-defense. Number 7. Smuggling gold in a wig. A man named Nushad was caught at Cochin International Airport in the city of Kochi, Kerala, while trying to smuggle around 1.13 kilograms of gold under his wig on Friday, October 4, 2019. Maybe inspired by a similar smuggling attempt in Barcelona earlier that year, Nushad, who is from Malappuram district in Kerala, was stopped before he could board his flight to Sharjah. To hide the gold, he shaved most of his hair off so he could carefully place the gold under his wig. The gold was in a paste-like form, wrapped in a black cover, which allowed it to avoid detection by metal detectors. He might have gotten away with it, but the customs team at Cochin International Airport had been tipped off about a potential smuggler and were checking all passengers thoroughly. This led to them catching him right before he could escape. The smuggling of gold in paste form has become a growing problem for the Kerala Customs Department, and incidents like this have been happening more often since the previous year. Although CIAL admits to catching smugglers hiding things in underwear or other body parts, this was the first time they found gold hidden under a wig. So while Nushad's idea might have seemed clever, he's now facing an investigation and could be looking at jail time. Number 6. Tourists faked kidnapping. A tourist who lost around $30,000 after gambling at the Marina Bay Sands or MBS Casino in Singapore came up with a wild plan to fake his own kidnapping. He tried to trick his aunt into sending him an additional $5,700 by claiming he was in danger. In a series of text messages to his aunt, who was in China at the time, Liu Changjian, a 33-year-old from China, demanded a ransom. However, the aunt didn't fall for it and didn't send any money. Instead, she contacted Liu's father, who was also in China, and told him about the so-called kidnapping. His father then quickly contacted the police in Singapore, and on March 10, 2024, authorities found Liu safe and sound in the Marina Bay area. He was arrested soon after. On May 6, 2024, Liu pleaded guilty to attempted cheating and was sentenced to 10 weeks in jail. Liu had arrived in Singapore on March 1, 2024, and had been gambling at the casino nearly every day, losing about $30,000. On March 7th, he pretended to be someone named Brother Tiger and reached out to his aunt through a secondary WeChat account, demanding she transfer 30,000 yuan by noon the next day. When she didn't respond, he messaged her again on March 8th, saying that if the money wasn't sent, he'd be locked up for 2 months. Seeing the strange messages, the aunt contacted his father, who quickly alerted the police. Number 5. Jewelry heist gone wrong. On the 26th of February, 2025, something wild went down at a Tiffany Co store in Orlando, Florida. A guy named Jathan Gilder, 32, from Houston, Texas, walked in acting like he was there to buy jewelry for an Orlando Magic basketball player. He called himself Sean, and the staff believed him, leading him into the VIP room. There, they showed him 2 pairs of diamond earrings and a diamond ring, all worth over $1 million. Out of nowhere, Gilder grabbed the jewelry and tried to run off. One of the workers tried to stop him, but he got away with the earrings, even though he dropped the ring. The store's security cameras caught the whole thing, and the cops were able to track his car. They caught up with him hours later, as he was heading toward Texas, and pulled him over. When they arrested him, they noticed he was swallowing something, likely the stolen jewelry. After his arrest, Gilder was rushed to the hospital so officers could wait for the jewelry to pass through his system. About a month later, on March 10, 2025, detectives got their hands on 3 of the 4 earrings, along with 2 other diamond earrings that hadn't been identified. The last earring showed up on March 12, 2025. After a good cleaning, a jeweler confirmed the pieces were the stolen ones and returned them to Tiffany's. Now, Gilder is stuck in jail at the Orange County Jail, facing charges for robbery with a mask and first-degree grand theft. He's also got 48 other warrants to deal with. Detective Aaron Goss from the Orlando Police Department said this case was a marathon, not a sprint. The whole situation, from the sneaky trick to getting the jewelry back, shows just how bold the crime was and how dedicated the police were to catching the thief. Number 4. GoFundMe scam. Caitlin McClure, who was 32 at the time, from Burlington Township, New Jersey, has been sentenced to 3 years in state prison for her role in a fake GoFundMe campaign that pulled in more than $400,000. The scam, which started in November of 2017, was run with her then-boyfriend, Mark D'Amico, and revolved around Johnny Bobbitt, who they claimed was a homeless veteran in Philadelphia. McClure and D'Amico told a story about how Bobbitt had given McClure his last $20 when her car ran out of gas. The story was emotional, and it moved thousands of people to donate. They set up a campaign with the goal of raising $10,000 to help Bobbitt get a home, transportation, and money for living expenses. But the response was huge, and the campaign ended up raising $402,000, way more than they expected. Instead of using the money for Bobbitt, McClure and D'Amico spent it on luxury items like a BMW, gambling, Louis Vuitton handbags, vacations to Las Vegas, and even a helicopter tour over the Grand Canyon. In 2018, Bobbitt filed a lawsuit against them, revealing that he had only gotten $75,000 from the campaign. This led to an investigation, and all 3 were hit with criminal charges. McClure pleaded guilty and is already serving a 1-year federal sentence. She was also permanently banned from working in any public service role. D'Amico, who also pleaded guilty, received a federal sentence of 27 months and 5 years in state prison. Their sentencing showed how much damage they caused to over 14,000 people who donated. GoFundMe acted quickly, refunding all the donations, saying it was committed to keeping the platform safe and trustworthy. Prosecutors hope this case will stop others from pulling off similar scams while making sure people who want to do good are still supported. Bobbitt, who also played a part in the scam, pleaded guilty in 2019. He had a history of making false claims, including a similar one in 2012. For his role, he was given probation and ordered to pay back the money. He also has to take part in an addiction treatment program, with a possible 5-year prison sentence if he doesn't stick to the program. Number 3. YouTuber almost dies for views. Jay Swingler, 22, from the TGF Bro YouTube channel, decided to do something pretty dangerous for a video. On a Wednesday, he put a plastic bag over his head, attached a tube so he could breathe, and then shoved his head into a microwave filled with polyfilla, which is a type of plaster. One of his friends then used a hairdryer to harden the plaster. After about 10 minutes of blow-drying, the cement became almost solid, according to the video the group posted. When Swingler stood up, he realized his airway was blocked. "I'm going to die," he said in the video. His friends tried to break the plaster and microwave off his head, but had no luck at first. They managed to make a hole so he could breathe, and then they called for help. It took 5 fire officials an hour to carefully break apart the microwave and plaster from his head, according to a statement from the West Midlands Fire Service. In a video posted the next day, Swingler said, "I've never appreciated life so much." Watch Commander Sean Dakin, the officer in charge of the fire crew that helped, said in a statement, "As funny as this sounds, this young man could quite easily have suffocated or been seriously injured." Number 2. Lottery winner dies mysteriously. Abraham Lee Shakespeare's life changed dramatically on the 15th of November, 2006, when he hit a $30 million jackpot in the Florida Lotto. He bought the winning ticket at a Town Star convenience store in Frostproof, Florida, while on a trip with his co-worker, Michael Ford. Shakespeare said he paid Ford $2 for the tickets, but Ford later demanded a cut of the prize, claiming Shakespeare had stolen from him. The court sided with Shakespeare, who chose to take a lump sum of $17 million. Suddenly, with all that money, Shakespeare's life became much more complicated. He moved into a gated community and bought some modest things, like a $1 million home, a Nissan Altima, and even a Rolex from a pawn shop. But by 2010, his fortune was gone. He regretted all the people who were constantly asking for money and said they only saw him as a way to get rich. One of the people who took advantage of him was Doris Dee Dee Moore, who got control of his finances through a business deal. Moore took money for her own expensive stuff, including a Hummer and a Corvette. In April of 2009, Shakespeare vanished. His family reported him missing in November, and several months later, his body was found buried under a concrete slab on property connected to Moore. Investigators discovered Moore's detailed efforts to cover up the crime, like pretending to be Shakespeare in text messages and offering bribes to confuse the police. She even tried to find someone to move the body. In December of 2012, Moore was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. Number 1. Kidnapping gone horribly wrong. In 2015, Antonio Salgado, Octavio Alejandre Jr., and Armando Delgado made plans to kidnap a man they thought was involved in substance trafficking. But things went horribly wrong when they realized they had grabbed the wrong person. Instead of the man they intended to abduct, they kidnapped his relative. The victim was taken at gunpoint outside his suburban Chicago home, blindfolded and beaten for nearly 2 days at an auto body shop in the Avondale neighborhood. The kidnappers then contacted another relative of the victim and demanded either narcotics or cash. What they didn't know was that federal authorities had already intercepted several of their phones during an unrelated investigation. The day after the kidnapping, a phone call between Salgado and Delgado was recorded, where Delgado told Salgado, "There's a little situation. It's the wrong guy because it's his brother that we're trying to get." Salgado responded, "Let the guy go, but beat the hell out of him." The victim was eventually released. The 3 men eventually pleaded guilty to a federal extortion charge. On the 3rd of December, 2024, U.S. District Judge Andrea R. Wood sentenced Alejandre Jr., 41, to 10.5 years in prison. On the 26th of November, 2024, Judge Wood sentenced Delgado, 44, to 14 years and 7 months in prison. Salgado, 42, was also sentenced to 10.5 years in prison on a Friday. During the trial, Salgado failed to show up to court and went on the run for nearly 8 months until he was tracked down and arrested. He also faced charges for contempt of court in a separate case. The sentences were announced by Morris Pasquale, the acting United States Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, Douglas S. DePodesta, Special Agent in charge of the Chicago Field Office of the FBI, and Sheila G. Lyons, Special Agent in charge of the Chicago Field Division of the U.S. DEA. The Berwyn, Illinois Police Department and the Chicago Police Department also provided valuable assistance. Assistant U.S. Attorneys Kartik K. Raman and Erica L. Chiksila emphasized the seriousness of the crime in the government's sentencing statement. "There is perhaps nothing more serious than grabbing a person off the street at gunpoint, using force and intimidation, and beating them to detain them," they said. The kidnapping involved in this case was violent, involved guns and other tools, and kept the victim detained for over 24 hours. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.